Have you ever done a sales call and got off of it and thought, oh my gosh, I blew that call? That was terrible. Well, if that is you, you're in good company because that was me last week during my launch. So thank you so much for being here. I am Brenna McGowan. I am a launch strategist and copywriter and an expert in pre-launch. So last week I was in the middle of my launch and I was doing some occasional sales calls. And I absolutely felt like I blew this sales call. And I thought I would share with you what happened so that you can avoid the same mistakes on your sales calls. Now, I have done a lot of sales calls in my career and in my business. So you think I would know these things already. But once in a while, things go haywire. And that was definitely the case last week. So the first thing was I was unprepared for the call. And I was not unprepared for the call because I didn't have the resources. It was because I messed up on the time that this particular sales call was at. So think about this really quickly, which is how can I make sure that I know exactly what time my calls are? Because I even looked at my calendar, but somehow I read it as something like 1:30 instead of 1 p.m. So if that morning, if I would have set an alarm, if I would have actually taken a second look at my calendar, I would have realized what time it was at. Now, that was obviously an accident that happens occasionally, but I couldn't believe that I had messed up on a call and an important call. And so what ended up happening is that I came to the call a little unprepared because normally I would take time to read the questionnaire. I would take time to look at their website, look at their Instagram, and get a good feel for who they are, what they need. And I didn't do that. So, no matter what, making sure that you are taking, and it doesn't have to be a lot of time. I'm guessing most of my sales calls I take about 10, 15 minutes, but really getting acquainted with the person and having some knowledge beforehand can make a huge difference on your call. So that was mistake number one. Mistake number two was I didn't take control of the call from the get go. And what do I mean by that? So I got onto this particular sales call and I was already like a little frazzled, right? But because I wasn't prepared. But this person in particular came on and they knew the questions that they had. I'm someone who sometimes likes a little bit more of a, like a quick chat back and forth at the beginning of a sales call. People will tell you, no, you should never do that. Personally, I like to get to know someone, where they live, where they're from, something like that. But in general, even if I skip that part, or even if you keep that part, you really want to take control of the call from the beginning, meaning that you're setting some type of itinerary. You are discussing what is going to happen on this call so that the person on the other side is prepared and knows what's going to go down. What ended up happening here is that this person, which was great, had some definite questions about the program and kind of started to rapid fire them at me. And what I should have done is, and this goes to mistake number three, I should have asked more questions. So if you get onto a sales call and someone is already like rapid firing questions at you, what I should have done at that point was been like, okay, great. I really love these questions and I want to make sure that I'm giving you the right information for you and your particular situation. So let me ask you a couple of questions first, right? Instead, I got into reactive mode, meaning that instead of knowing exactly, the questions, that I wanted to ask, instead I started reacting to her questions. And so once again, really thinking about how can you set the tone of the call from the beginning and how can you ask questions? Because what you're able to do in a sales call, if you're asking certain questions, when that person comes back with you with their own questions, you're able to use their words, their needs, their pain points, their desires, and reflect that back to them in the questions that they are asking. And so that was another problem that I made. And even as I talk about this out loud, I'm like, how did I make so many mistakes when I know better? Which was I made some assumptions about their business because I wasn't prepared, because I didn't ask enough questions, because I was in reactive mode. What ended up happening is I made some assumptions about their business as I was talking with them, and they called me on it. And I was like, you know what? You're completely right. Inside, I was like, it's because I didn't ask enough questions. So when you're on a sales call, and I know for me, sometimes I get nervous, even after I've done a ton of them, is like, you want to be talking. I think it's something like 20% of the time, 80% of the time, you want your person that you're on the sales call with talking so that you can truly understand where they're at. And this is how you decide if this person is a good fit for your program, your service, whatever it is. Because you've asked them enough questions, you have enough context to their situation to understand how your offer, your program, membership, whatever it is, how it will help them reach the results, the goals, their needs, wants, and desires by what you're doing. So, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. So, moving forward, I'm definitely thinking about like, okay, even though this was a mistake, and this goes, I want you to think about it too. Even if you blow a sales call, you learn from it, you help others learn from it, and then you move on. And so, just to do a quick recap here is making sure that you're prepared, double checking your calendar, making sure that you have some type of questionnaire that you can go in and take a look at the person and their business. You want to make sure that you're asking a lot of questions, right? So that you're not making assumptions. And you definitely, from the very beginning of the call, want to take control of the call and set the tone for the overall sales call, because this is the things that help you make more sales.